All right, thank you everybody for being here today. The part of the project that I'm going to talk about this morning is a study abroad course that I was able to teach this semester. This is a graduate level course that was comprised of 8 students from our higher education and counseling programs here in the School of Ed. And we were able to travel to China for a 12-day trip over spring break. So we're just back about a month at this point, and I think still maybe recovering from jet lag a little bit, and certainly still processing our experiences. I want to tell you a little bit about the context of the trip. In that 12 days, we were able to travel to 3 different cities in China: Beijing, Xi'an, which is the blue marker, and Shanghai, which is in the green. And so we were on the move. It was a very fast-paced trip. We were in country in China for 10 days, and so we were in each city for about three days. So we definitely covered a lot of ground, and I just saw an article yesterday that was on Inside Higher Ed talking about the need for more rigor and more intentionality in study abroad experiences, really moving from an educational tour to a more integrated experience. And that's something that I certainly tried to do as I was creating this experience for students. And I think one of the components of the trip that was really a highlight was the opportunities to engage with faculty and graduate students in China. We were able to visit 5 different educational institutions during the trip. And for most of these visits, we were able to spend a full day interacting with faculty in a number of ways, faculty and graduate students, in more formal lectures and meetings, and more informal meals and interview conversation exchanges. And so for me, that was truly one of the most valuable aspects of the trip, was the one-on-one time that we had talking with our counterparts about teaching and learning in China and in the US. I want to share with you some of the major assignments and products that students are engaging in as a part of this course. And all of these assignments, with the exception of the informal reflective writing, will be presented on the blog. So the blog address that Emily shared with you at the beginning of the presentation is a place where you can go to see student work in progress at this point as we're heading towards the end of the semester. Each of these assignments was designed, what I had in mind was opportunities to integrate learning. So bring what we were studying in class here in Williamsburg before our trip into interaction with what we actually did and experienced while we were in China. And then now that we're back on campus, being able to reflect and bring those together even more closely. All students did interviews and observations of teaching and learning, both here in the US and also in China. Those were a combination of audio interviews, video interviews, as well as observations where students took field notes. Students worked in small groups to do summaries of each of the 3 cities that we visited, with the intention of connecting what we were reading about and learning from the literature beforehand in class experience with what we actually did and experienced during our time in China. Each student talked about a cultural artifact that they brought back with them, either a physical object or a memory or a photograph from our experience in China, and connected that to the course content. And then lastly, each individual student is working on a project that they were able to really customize to their own learning and research interests. So those are projects that are, for most people, very closely aligned with their dissertation studies or their personal or professional interests. And the method for each of these is, like Jeremy explained, a web-based digital storytelling idea to really capitalize on the use of new media to show student learning, to document student learning in a different and richer way. I'll show you a quick example, and again, you can look at these yourself on the web. This is from one of our students, Jess Hench, who's a first-year PhD student in higher ed. This is her project looking at teaching and learning in the US and China. And so I'll just scroll down quickly here so you can see the combination that Jess has put together of text, photography. Here we have some videos from some of you who are actually in the audience today, consented to interview and share with Jess about your thoughts on teaching and learning. And so then this is a US context. We also have similar use of media, text, to document what Jess learned and observed in our time visiting the different institutions in China. There we go. And so I want to use the rest of my time to talk about assessment, which has I think, been a unique challenge with this course, with the different format and the different types of assignments that I've included. It's been a challenge to the traditional way of assessing student work. So I haven't asked students to write a formal paper. I expressly asked them not to write a formal paper and instead to put together a web-based product that incorporated all of these different media. And so it requires a different type of assessment from the way that I would normally read a paper and give students feedback. One of the things that I've really put in the foreground of the assessment here is that it's formative assessment. In conversations with students as we were talking about the assignments, there was a lot of anxiety as far as how is this going to be graded? What are you expecting of me? And so I've tried to, as the semester has gone on, try to take some of that anxiety away and give students more freedom to be creative by having kind of an ongoing exchange, that we have deadlines where students turn in drafts of their work. I turn those around within a week and provide feedback. Students have an opportunity to revise and make it better. I'll give more feedback. So it's not a sense of turn it in, I'll give you a grade and we'll move on. It's much more of a give and take process as far as the learning goes. The main method that I've been developing over the course of the semester to help with this process is through rubrics. And developing the rubrics has been challenging for me as an instructor because I see it as a double-edged sword, that it provides some guidance for the students, and it helps to take away some of that anxiety about where are the points coming from, what are you going to be evaluating me on. And so that's helpful. But it also, I think, just by the nature of a rubric, has some limitations in that I'm saying here, you can see the background here is one of the rubrics. This section of the assignment is worth 5 points, and these are the things that you should do to maximize those points. And so I'm a little torn about the use of rubrics, but I think overall it's been a useful tool in the assessment process, especially when looking at this as a formative assessment environment. Lastly, I think a really important part of this process has been the process of building trust with the students. It's a small group, 8 students, as I said, many of whom are here today, and so I hope that you'll talk about your experiences as students in the class. And it's been a chance for me to build that trust with students, to give feedback and say, okay, these are the ways that you can make it better. Let's work together on how we can do that, rather than a more judgmental type of environment. So building that trust has been an important part of the assessment process for me. And lastly, to wrap up my section, I want to share with you a few of what I would call the successes of this part of the project, as well as a couple of things that I'm still thinking about and would recommend to any of you that are thinking about engaging in these types of web-based projects. First and foremost, I think that the face-to-face engagement and collaboration that we were able to have in China was the highlight of the experience. And I have to thank the folks at the Confucius Institute for really helping to make those connections with our colleagues in China. The use of digital media has allowed us to capture and share what we experienced in those firsthand interactions in much richer and different ways. A student writing, a typical research paper about their time in China just would not be able to convey the same types of things that I'm seeing students convey with their use of video, audio, photography, as well as text. I think that the practical implications of the media that we've collected are something that we'll be able to explore for a long time. We're certainly looking at the bounds of the semester as far as trying to work through the different assignments, but the amount of data and media that we've collected is something that I see as an ongoing project, specifically looking at some of the issues that were raised earlier about the increasing number of Chinese students studying in the US and here at William & Mary. I think we have great information to be able to put together in a way that can help students with that transition from a traditional Chinese educational environment to a graduate school environment in the US, or an undergraduate experience for that matter. I think in terms of recommendations, the role of media, while it has been a great tool for us, has also been something that I've struggled with the best way to manage in terms of storing all the data, compiling it from students, as well as kind of learning the technology as we're going along. Something that I wish I would have thought about in advance was having someone attached to the class who was a media coordinator or a tech consultant that Emily is actually going to talk about in a few minutes with her class. And I think lastly what I would say is that you have to be open to an evolving process if you're looking at these types of projects. That I've learned as I've gone this semester, and I think students have as well, and to be able to just set that expectation at the beginning that this is something that we're going to develop in partnership as we go along in the semester, I think is really helpful. And I think that continued opportunities specifically for graduate study are just essential. I think that we don't have enough of those opportunities. And what I'm seeing students take away from this experience, both professionally and personally, I think is really valuable. And so even a shorter term experience like this, I think is something that we really have to integrate into our curriculum.